Hey guys, welcome back to the Cult Classic Kids Show, and today we're going to be talking about The Last of Us HBO television series that will be premiering January 15th, I'm pretty sure. So I will be watching the show. I do have HBO Max, and a lot of people may not necessarily know this about me, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of The Last of Us, the original game. I couldn't give a single fuck about the sequel, honestly, but that first game I really enjoyed. I played through it 2 to 3 times, something like that. I definitely put my time into it, not just the single player, but also the multiplayer. I put a lot of time into that multiplayer. It's a lot of fun for me personally. So, I am a bit of a fan of the original game. Do I think it's the greatest game ever? No, but I really enjoyed it for what it was for sure. But they're coming out with a show. Personally, I will say I don't have high hopes for the show. First off, I kind of don't understand why the show exists for The Last of Us. The game is the type of game that kind of plays out like film. So to do a show depicting a pretty showy video game, like if you want to watch a show, go play the video game. Honestly, if you haven't played The Last of Us, you really should. You should give it a try. Um, Especially if you're into like zombie apocalyptic sort of deal. It's actually pretty interesting. I do like the characters. A lot of people think it's one of the greatest video games ever made. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but very touching, very interesting, very I don't want to say fun, but you'll definitely be intrigued. That's the one thing I can definitely say about it. The craftsmanship from Naughty Dog was definitely pretty top notch for its time, admittedly. But when it comes to this show, like I said, my hopes aren't too high. I'm kind of a little concerned when the showrunner is kind of saying some weird shit, you know. So yeah, let's just jump into the weird shit that the showrunner has been saying, and we'll just give our general thoughts. I'm interested to see what you guys think. I'm basically giving my early thoughts before I see the show on what's gonna happen. So it'll be interesting to see like how I feel now versus when I actually do watch the show. But it's from the gamer. The Last of Us showrunner says, "Death in the game means less because it's just showing pixels die." Last of Us screenwriter Craig Mazin compares death in the game to that of the upcoming show. So right off the bat, this headline is kind of striking to me, not in a good way. It kind of shows that this person doesn't really value the source material in any way when honestly you're making a TV show that's about a video game. A video game that's touched a lot of people. A lot of people very passionate about The Last of Us. So if you're kind of acting like it's not really meaningful, I mean it just kind of it kind of says to me from what you're saying that you don't really appreciate or are even a gamer really. But let's get into the article. It says, "It's an unfortunate fact of life that those who aren't into video games will never truly understand how much more engaging it is than any other medium." I 100% agree with that. "While everyone who has played a story driven video game has surely at some point read a book and watched a movie, the reverse is not true. Meaning, there are so many people who will never understand the storytelling power of video games, and occasionally it shows." This is 100% true, guys. People that don't really play video games won't understand how truly engaging the medium can be, how immersive the medium can be. The fact that I can interact with the story directly, with the characters, with my environment, I can explore and really get a good sense of everything that's going on around me. Television and film cannot do that. While I do love film and not so much television, I mean I really enjoy anime, but these other mediums can't really be as nearly as immersive to me as video games are. That's why I believe personally video games are the ultimate form of entertainment as of right now in terms of what it's capable of. The article continues, "Given what we know about The Last of Us, thanks to the games, you can expect quite a bit of violence in the show as well. There's going to be at least one clicker biting a chunk out of someone's neck. However, according to the upcoming show's screenwriter Craig Mazin, it might have a bigger effect in live action than via the video game. So, from what I've heard, given details that have been admitted about the show this far, they've said that the show itself isn't going to be as violent and gruesome as the video game. Now, this can be interpreted in two ways. It could be interpreted as one, you know, basically the gameplay segments add more gore and violence to the video game, whereas there's no gameplay segments in the Last of Us TV show. It's a story. It's going to have its moments, but not nearly as much action moments as the show. That's one way to interpret it. Or the other way to interpret that possibility is just the reality that they are going to tone the show down, I guess, to make it not as gruesome. So, like I said, that's something that I've heard, and that can be interpreted in two ways. The first way, I can completely understand. We're not gonna have gameplay segments in a video game. In a TV show, there's gonna be some action scenes in the TV show, but not whole, full gameplay segments. So I can understand that. Whereas if they tone the show down so that it's way more toned down than the video game is overall, that's going to be pretty disappointing to me. They said when you're playing a section, you're killing people, and when you die, you get sent back to the checkpoint. All of those people are back, moving around in the same way, said Mazin in an interview with The New Yorker. Watching a person die, I think, ought to be much more different than watching pixels die. So this is kind of like nonsense to me, in all honesty. Now, this is a television show. This isn't real life. So at the end of the day, we know these are actors performing stunts, and I'm sure there's going to be some CGI. None of this shit is real. So while, pixels in video games determine that video games aren't real, people don't really die. The same thing can be said for television. People don't really die, as long as the set goes well. Can't really say the same for some sets, unfortunately, but ideally this is all pretend. We're playing pretend here, So I really don't understand this way of thinking from the showrunner Mazin. It's just, I think that's kind of ignorant. Said while what Mazin says isn't entirely true, he does make a valid point. In a game, The Last of Us in this case, we're expected to kill and even be merciless at times. Considering how many AI enemies you may have killed over the years, it isn't something that would disturb you, at least not after the first few times. However, watching Pedro Pascal force a blunt shiv into Firefly's neck, holding him down as he dies slowly and painfully, is bound to disturb even some seasoned gamers. Elsewhere in the interview, Mazin and Neil Druckmann discuss how Joel would not be the unstoppable action hero he is in the first game. Audiences will notice the wear and tear that time has had on him. We had a conversation about the toll Joel's life would have had on him physically, said Druckmann, so he's hard of hearing on one side because of a gunshot. His knees hurt every time he stands up. So, two things with this. So, this first part here is like, I just don't understand the way of thinking when trying to basically, I guess they're trying to say that we're desensitized to violence as gamers, but in a sense that could be true, but for me personally, I'm not desensitized to violence. Like when it comes to video games, I'm completely fine with all the gore, all the blood, all the guts, the dismemberments, the beheadings. All that shit is cool with me, simply because I know that it's fake. Now, if I was to watch, a real life scenario of dismemberment, and I know that it's real, this is not fake, I would be petrified. I don't even really, like, when it comes to, like, someone getting cut, and if I know that the cut is potentially bad, like, I'm kind of weary of that. I'm scared of that, because I know that it's real, and that's, like, has a real effect on the real world. Whereas with video games, I'm completely fine with all that stuff because it's fake. And it's the same thing with television. I'm fine with the gore, the blood and guts because I know that it's fake. I don't really see the argument here that is to be had. Now, with the second part of the article, they're basically discussing how they're kind of, you know, having Joel a little more beat up in this scenario, how the way of the world has worn him down. I mean, that could be fine. Could make him sort of relatable given the scenario that the the show in the script has put Joel through. Like you expect him to have some wear and tear. But when it comes to the video game, I mean, you could tell that Joel's kind of worn the fuck out, just on his attire, the way he looks. Honestly, at times he just feels like he's like just operating on adrenaline really, if I'm honest. They don't really talk about like how, I guess, we don't really get a sense of his knees being fucked up in the game, at least the first game or whatever, but yeah, this may be fine, but also you have to understand this is Neil Druckmann, and unfortunately Neil Druckmann doesn't really seem he's a cuck. He's kind of like a soy boy loser that doesn't really like men too much. He'd rather have big brolic ass women. So I mean, it could be completely fine what they're doing to Joel because it's understandable. But also, will they take it too far? Will they try to demasculinize Joel? Will they, not have Joel's character live up to what gamers idolize him as that father figure, as that stern dude that's willing to do all this shit, to go as far as he needs to go in order to, defend his kid, Ellie, like that's an important part of his character. And if they demasculinize Joel, it's an automatic fucking write-off for me, honestly. If you fuck with Joel, it's a wrap. So you guys better do right by Joel, period. Otherwise, yeah, good luck winning over fans, and Neil Druckmann has pretty much voiced that he has no problem fracturing his audience. I think that he gets off to it, honestly, because he's a fucking weirdo. But that's how a lot of these pretentious pricks are when it comes to television or video games, all that shit. Like, you have these pretentious dorks that just love doing that kind of stuff, just love throwing a monkey wrench into a community. Instead of trying to bring us all together, they love breaking us in half and just having us, arguing with each other over petty shit at the end of the day. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. I don't really trust Neil Druckmann. I don't really trust a lot of writers nowadays, especially when it comes to male figures that should be like father figures. But we also have another story that kind of makes me chuckle a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. And here we have an article from Bounding into Comics, and shout out to Spencer. This article says HBO's The Last of Us showrunner believes the original games tell the greatest story that has ever been told in video games. So, the greatest story that's ever been told. Like, this isn't even up for dispute, bro. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Article says in a declaration so absurd that even Kotaku found themselves cautioning against such hyperbole. HBO's The Last of Us showrunner Craig Mazin, again the same fucking guy, believes that he is working to adapt the greatest story that has ever been told in video games. Well, that's crazy, but Mazin, whose previous credits include stints on the writing teams for Scary Movie 3. I mean, maybe that's why he does think it's the greatest story ever told. He writes shit like Scary Movie. Around in the director's chair for superhero movie, and most recently a showrunner for HBO's Chernobyl, which he also created. I heard Chernobyl was actually pretty decent, but I haven't watched it. Offered his opinion of Naughty Dog's zombie survival tale during a recent interview with Empire magazine. He said it's an open and shut case. Okay, so that he's that definitive. So I guess he's played all sorts of story-driven video games, and he's come to this conclusion. Mason confidently asserted, "This is the greatest story that has ever been told in video games." So, I mean, the Witcher series, Red Dead Redemption 2, the Metal Gear Solid franchise, Half-Life, God of War, Grand Theft Auto games, BioShock, Final Fantasy 7. Some people say Final Fantasy 6 is an even better story. The Arkham games, Batman Arkham games, um, Chrono Trigger, people throw up there. Uh, did I say Mass Effect? I guess Mass Effect. A lot of people love the story in Mass Effect games, until the third one. But yeah, I mean, definitively, Telltale's The Walking Dead, Telltale's The Wolf Among Us, the Quantic Dream games. I really did like those games. So, I mean, there's no debate to even be had. You can't simply just say it's one of the, but without a doubt, you know, open and shut case 100%, The Last of Us story is the best thing on God's green earth. Like, come on, man. Can we just, like, this is why you don't deal in absolutes, because you always sound like a fucking idiot. Do not, if that's one thing I can express from a debate standard, never deal in absolutes. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. But, as to why you believe the tale of Joel and Ellie, presumably Abby's, as he's not, whatever. Mason said it was because of how its main cast of characters were regular people rather than any type of superhuman, which, despite being a self-declared video game player, he somehow believes is an unbelievable anomaly uh, within the medium. Once again, Red Dead 1, Red Dead 2. Like, there's plenty of games where there's characters that are pretty down to earth. I'm just saying. Has he played any video games? Has he even played The Last of Us? That's something I would like to know. Or did he just watch the cutscenes? But yeah, I think that's a bit of an extreme opinion. If The Last of Us is one of your favorite video games, one of your favorite stories, that's cool. I mean, that's like a personal thing, and I don't blame you because the characters are genuinely touching. I mean, that's pretty fair. But to say definitively, without a doubt, there is no debate. It is the ultimate story ever told in the video game medium entirely. I mean, you're being a clown. They didn't shoot anything out of their eyeballs, explained the showrunner. Well, now you just sound like a dick face. But anyway, they were just people, and that in itself is remarkably rare in games. The fact that they kept it so grounded and really made you feel. I had never experienced anything like it, and I've been playing video games since 1977. Okay, sure, buddy. I guess you've been playing fucking Pac-Man this whole time. But it's, yeah, dude's being a little bit extra. However, despite believing the original games to have been a tour de force in terms of storytelling, Mason revealed to Empire Magazine that he and The Last of Us creator Neil Druckmann would be using The Last of Us live-action adaptation to expand on the series' original narrative. Oof. Games themselves are often brilliant to play and not at all brilliant to watch when demonstrated, claimed the showrunner. Neil and I always knew to ask, why are we only doing what's in the game? What can we do to expand? So it's like, when they deal in like stuff that deviates from the source material, shit gets bad normally. I mean, look at the Witcher series. What is this new Witcher bullshit? The Witcher spin-off that doesn't have Geralt, it's like a prequel. I heard that absolutely shit the bed on every front. Just a giant piece of crap. Same thing with Rings of Power. That deviates from Tolkien's work, and a lot of Tolkien fans say it's a pile of dog shit. So like, y'all should just concentrate on depicting the video game accurately rather than worrying about the extra nonsense. As noted above, not only is Mason's praise so outlandish that most everyone who has read it has rolled their eyes in disbelief, but his reasoning behind it, to say the least, absolutely baffling, as the very idea of grounded storytelling has been a staple of video games for years, especially in the realm of horror games, no doubt. From Silent Hill 2 to Resident Evil 2 to the early Fatal Frame titles, most memorable horror games have focused on dropping regular people into a supernaturally dangerous and ever terrifying setting and tasking them with getting out alive and nothing more than regular everyday weapons and items. Facts. And while there are some memorable emotional beats, golf club related, pun not intended, to The Last of Us story, its core, it's still a rather standard zombie tale. An outbreak happens, someone is discovered to be naturally immune, and their DNA becomes key to saving the human species before devolving into a confusing and often self-contradictory revenge plot in part 2. The live action of The Last of Us series is currently set to shamble onto HBO on January 15, 2023. I mean, like, I think that The Last of Us story, it's genuinely touching. Like, it gets in the feels, you know? And that's on the part of the characters, no doubt. And I don't really want to say, like, I mean, I guess realistically, the show, I mean, the video game story is kind of on the generic side, but it kind of really gets deep into the character arcs, which, at least the first game, you know, I really enjoy that. It makes it touching and meaningful. It makes the expansion on that really makes it more feel like way more than just a generic story. But you know, it's one of those things where I don't think it's necessarily super generic, but I can understand why people would think that. But they do a really good job of taking on fundamentals in the first The Last of Us. The second one, yeah, good luck with that. But lastly, let's see. So they already have planned out that there's no doubt going to be a season 2. And The Last of Us HBO showrunner teases season 2 plans. Craig Mazin, once again with this clown, the showrunner behind HBO's upcoming TV adaptation of The Last of Us, has teased his own plans for the show's second season. Currently, HBO hasn't announced that The Last of Us will be receiving any new seasons beyond the first run of episodes that has slated to premiere later this month. Assuming that the series does get renewed, though, Mazin already knows the direction he'd like to go in. In a discussion with The Hollywood Reporter, Mazin explained plainly that a potential season 2 for The Last of Us would directly adapt the game's sequel, The Last of Us Part 2. While this might seem like a logical thing to do, some fans wondering if Mazin and co-writer Neil Druckmann would opt to explore the gap between the video game entry a bit more in the show to highlight more of what protagonist Joel and Ellie did between installments. For Mazin, though, he stated that doing something along the lines would be considered filler, which is not what he wants. I mean, he's already admitted they're going to do filler. Like, they're adding filler to this first season. So I don't understand why you pick and... You know what? Honestly, I think, like, honestly, I don't really know if Neil Druckmann wants to even depict the first The Last of Us. Because clearly, Neil Druckmann's the type of dude, he likes to, you know, be an asshole. I should say. He likes to be divisive. He purposely chooses to be divisive and then gets upset when people are saying... That's pretty much my biggest thing with The Last of Us Part 2. When it comes to that game. Naughty Dog came out before the game even came out, and before the leaks for the game even came out, and said, The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be divisive. Some people are going to hate it, and some people are going to love it. They knew that, and they chose to go with that. When that actually happened, when the game itself divided the community, fractured it in half, then they just went on the ultra defensive. And it's like, you chose to make a divisive game, and now you're upset that you accomplish what you set out to do. That's the dumb thing about part 2. But it seems as though this first season is strictly depicting The Last of Us part 1, the first game, with filler. For some reason, it's okay for filler to be in this situation, but in between part, like the first game and the second game, anything in that area, in that gray area, which we've never experienced with the games themselves, he doesn't want to touch that. That's apparently filler to him, but the filler he already has is apparently like, okay. Okay, buddy, whatever you say, bro. Knowing that The Last of Us Part 2 would be on tap to get adapted in season 2 of The Last of Us, it begs to the question of when such a season would be filmed. For those unaware, The Last of Us Part 2 takes place multiple years after the first game, which means that many of the main characters in the series are considerably older. This is particularly important for Ellie, who is portrayed by Bella Ramsey in HBO's The Last of Us, whether or not Mason and those in charge of The Last of Us would look to immediately film season 2 if it got greenlit, or instead wait for Ramsey to age up a bit, remains to be seen, but it's something to keep in mind moving forward, regardless of what the future holds. Whatever, bro. So this is apparently, this first season is indeed season 1, and the future with The Last of Us show probably getting a second season, they want to depict the second game. So I think that, you know, I can't really say. Honestly, I don't know if people are gonna like the Last of Us TV show this first season, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be those like defenders. Like the crazy thing about The Last of Us is that the fans are like mentally deranged, a lot of them. I definitely know some sane The Last of Us fans that, you know, are okay with criticism, but if you know anything, even before The Last of Us Part 2, if you went on this Facebook, the Facebook page of The Last of Us before the sequel ever came out, you would know firsthand how truly cancerous that community is. Any criticism at all or disagreement at all, they are like fucking hyenas. It's just very, very strange. So I think that, you know, those deranged people are going to stand the show no matter what. As for people that are, you know, willing to actually, you know, use their brain, sort of pick at things, some people may find some things to enjoy about the show and some things not so much. And I think that there's definitely going to be people that don't really care for the show, aren't going to understand why it exists. Personally, I will fall likely in that latter half of individuals. I mean, I don't know why the show exists right now, to be honest with you. As for just the general, I don't know, hopefully there's some things I could like about it. Honestly, I'm hoping for a good portrayal of Joel. That would make me happy because I do really enjoy that character. He's a great video game character. Pedro Pascal, while he's kind of strange in his own right, he's a pretty decent actor from what I've seen. So that'll be interesting to see how he depicts that character. To me, that character is make or break. If you fuck with Joel, it's a wrap. Will I watch the entire show? Highly, I doubt it. If I can stomach it, I will. But if it's absolute dog shit, I'm gonna end up being like, nope, not watching anymore. I'll let you guys know when I stop. You know? Shit, I tried to watch the Elvis movie the other day. Got about a half hour in and said, this film is filmed so obnoxiously, and just yeeted it the fuck off my television. So I don't really go for nonsense. It is what it is. I value my time too much to waste it on garbage. So at least if it's good, I'll happily watch it. If it's mid, I'll stick with it. If it's garbage, I'm out. We'll probably talk about each episode as it comes out on Too Real for Feels podcast. I know that my boy TJ Combo X is going to be watching it. He's going to try it. He doesn't guarantee he's going to watch the whole thing, but he's going to try it since he has access to HBO Max as well. We'll see what happens. My expectations are super low, as you could tell, but I'm open to it. I would like for them to make something that's compelling, but we know how unfortunately the industry of entertainment is nowadays. Sometimes they just don't seek to do that. They don't seek to entertain. It's just a strange. We live in strange times, guys. It's almost like they feel entitled to our money just because, even if they choose to spin in your face. But we'll see how it goes. Are you guys excited for The Last of Us HBO Max television series? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you can, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Follow me over on Twitch or Twitter if you want to continue the conversation. And guys, with all that being said, I'm out. Peace.